Okay, so you have an opportunity as a designer to create and make something that influence so many people at random. Probably you may not influence in 17 lakhs people, but you might influence in 17,000 people, and think about what architecture can do. And what we call it DNA unchanged, because it also matters because where you're coming from and how the practice evolved from the socio-economic fabric, and that's most important part. This is important that when we have designed the pavilion, why you are making it, and it is only one agenda, that this pavilion has to be kind of an permanent, and how you take this permanence into the public realm. And when we have designed this, we make sure that we invited few people who can influence the government, who can bring it into the permanence, into the park or something where people can gather.
I invite on stage Abin Chaudhuri from Abin Design Studio.
My presentation is a little bit of different that what we have actually thought, because we believe in architecture started with the roots, how you brought up and where you started. This picture actually in 1972 partitions, where my father, when he was in 10 years age, came to Bengal. So we uprooted all the families from Bangladesh and settled in East Bengal. So most of the projects started with my hometown, and also how our practice actually organically growth, and the way we have actually practiced is kind of in witnessing these presentations. So before we start our presentations, I always give a Torpon, which is in kind of Bengali word, which is kind of tribute to one, of course, my father, who inspired me to be part of in architectural professions, and being a very famous mathematician, he never been forced to me in mathematics, but stay, kind of inspired me to be where I feel good. And also the Charles Correa, whose building actually really inspired me to from mathematical honors to an architectural course. And it's an incident that happened when Charles Correa Memorial Lecture happened in post Mr. Correa died. So Monica Correa, his wife, came to Calcutta, and we are discussing about how this building actually changed my life. So this building we could not open for last 22 years, and she called the owner, who stays in London. And this is not even documented by Charles Correa Foundations. And in 1962 he has designed it. This is the one of the very, very interesting house built in Calcutta, apart from city center Salt Lake. And when that day we opened this building, it was an incredible jewels, which in Balikan Circular Road. If you are in Calcutta, you might be seeing this. But while expressing and practice, you need to understand where you are coming from. And as my practice based in Calcutta, and it's from Bengal, and while we will always focusing on architecture in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and always Calcutta is now never ever been to a kind of an realm of focus of architectural league, where Delhi, Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Chandigarh, even today in the Bangalore and Kolkata, Kochi is much more famous, but in the kind of route. But we always kind of lost opportunities, because in the last 35 years of communist government, which never been in kind of restricted the idea of movement, idea of potentiality. And eventually what happened when TMC took over, that become an ultra communist and become a kind of a more exorbitant, and how the practices kind of diluting in terms of where the state become the most bigger real estate players. And what we call it DNA unchanged, because it also matters because where you're coming from and how the practice evolved from the socio-economic fabric, and that's most important part. And where the states announces that if you put a building blue and white, you get a taxations rebate, and that changes the whole city fabric completely, and a complete genocide, and that's an very, very detrimental for the city and the cityscape, where every government building becomes black and white, and the state of practice has completely changed, where the states is become the most important part of the whole architecture. And this is kind of dwarf building, but today West Bengal states makes in multiple places across the city. And that's a mockery of how the states will be making it. And these are not it's like a toy, okay? And these are things where we are coming from. The architects and architectural students are actually seeing those things. The state of hope is what I always feel, that the Bengal produces the 4 Nobel laureate and 1 Oscar, a lifetime achiever, and that's an great things. And we had a lot of opportunities, but we have never been able to do that opportunities. And I feel that the celebrations, and that is a kind of decoding that and research that the studio is making for the last, late 18 years, that we felt that where the value in India, we talk about a lot of interesting things, idea, forums. Not a single newspapers has spent on your professions of a single column, and think about it, you spend time, hi, hello, and Foaids and so many things, and you have no values, to be honestly. Neither as an architect, neither as a profession. Let me very digest that, and that's a fundamental questions where the celebration starts. And I felt that the celebrations, what people, the million of people bring it together, and I always felt that in India, where there'll be a celebration when they put together and so many peoples, and you have a choice to influence so many peoples at a time. And probably that is a one point of time I thought that this is the kind of idea that in architecture can be evolved through so many millions people, and that is what it calls it's the power of impermanence and architecture for many. And this is what we believe in, and that is why we made this pavilion in 2018 to influence so many peoples. And it takes probably in 6 months to design and a 3 box of 2 feet by 2 feet, 3 feet by 3 feet, and 4 feet by 4 feet. And honestly, there is no structural engineer. And we actually make so much simulations and softwares and understand the structures and make sure that it works. And it has to be made in 16 days. And also the idea also making this building also not to disturb the neighborhoods, because if you are from Calcutta, the Durga Puja pandal will be happening in such a gaga with 6 months covering your windows and everywhere in holistically. So you do not enjoy these whole celebrations, but it's an important to understand the neighborhoods. And as an architect, when we are actually intervening this kind of an interventions, it has to be very important that you don't really disturb others. So this is a kind of just a mesh with welded boxes, which also a kind of allow people to breathe outside, because that's very important in terms of a neighborhood to design the pavilion, how we have done it. And this is important that when we have designed the pavilion, why you are making it. And it is only one agenda, that this pavilion has to be kind of an permanent, and how you take this permanence into the public realm. And when we have designed this, we make sure that we invited few people who can influence the government, who can bring it into the permanence, into the park or something where people can gather. So what we have done, in one pavilion in 10 days fetches 17 lakhs people. Okay, so you have an opportunity as a designer to create and make something that influence so many people at random. Probably you may not influence in 17 lakhs people, but you might influence in 17,000 people. And think about what architecture can do, what architects' responsibility can really kind of imbibe in their life. So what happened, the ephemeral to perennial is kind of an important to create those things into permanency. So what we have done is we created an Unbox. And this boxes has been reused in a permanent installation in a park, where its geometry and a science has been created, and a very interesting and a 7-meter height and installations, which is a permanent installation in a public park. And what happened in the public park today is one of the most famous and populated public park in Calcutta. And today everybody with the reel makers, with an advertising people, for photography, for any matchmaking sessions, people go there. And what happened, this is such important that there's a multiple million of Instagram pages has happened throughout these areas. And this is a kind of snapshots how the placemaking has so much influence on the public life. And this is what Kenneth Frampton says that the central principle of the critical regionalism is surely in commitment to the place rather than the space. And the IIT Pavilion also a kind of a small placemaking within the IIT Kharagpur, which has been actually Sundar Pichai Foundation and NEOS Foundation requested us to design an AC Pandya Pavilion. The AC Pandya is a very famous professor in agricultural buildings, and he devoted his life to teaching in the village. So he generally go to multiple places where poor children need to be kind of need in educations. So the idea of foundations is to create a kind of a contemporary pavilion to idea of that kind of simple idea of kind of chawl. So from that chawl, so create a kind of a simple idea of chawl, and we just changes the axis on top. And we make this in the pavilion on the agricultural department, where there is a lab and they have given a kind of place. So there'll be a few trees, we kept it as it is, and we designed within that. So we twisted that building and touches on the corner and make the ridges diagonally over there. So that's a simple building. So what we have done is this building has been made, so it's not photographed well. So this is the lower level, which is kind of mesh, which protect from the mosquito and other things. It's allow ventilations. The upper level is the glass, so protect from the sun. And it just give you a kind of portal which allow kind of announcement of the entrance of the students for cafe, for any kind of fest they can engage over there. So this is from the agricultural lab. Inside there'll be a small waity, and it's actually house the toilets and pantry. Yeah. So going forward, we also do quite a number of public projects, and the two public projects I'm going to show you right now in Shantiniketan, which is on a 260-kilometer highway from West Bengal. And Shantiniketan today is the UNESCO World Heritage List, and Rabindranath Tagore has actually started the Vishwabharati over here. And that is what it's really kind of interesting cultural ecosystems that evolved from Shantiniketan. And not only the streets, also the way of educations, way of forest, and the tribal art and the culture, how they have regenerate from that area is really kind of interesting. And how Vishwabharati has actually done and creating an organic growth at wherever there are no trees, there'll be a kind of a building has happened, and that's why the Vishwabharati has emerged as part of the complex, and an ungated community without any defined boundary has happened. So Bandhan School of Business has actually came 10 years back, where they have actually acquired a nursery and they were to make a training center. So it's now become a kind of business school. But when I have visited the site, these are 10 years old pictures, and we thought that how this nursery can be really kind of livable, and the people on the nursery can be part of the whole systems. And Bandhan become a kind of microfinance guy. They lend money to the many laborers, local peoples, and all those things. So we try to figure it out and kind of ecosystems, how it works, really kind of part of that. And we actually try to make a few kind of meandering spaces, blocks which kind of organically settled in terms of the existing nursery, and make the nursery on top of the building. And this is the kind of sections we try to actually engage in terms of how the mount of nursery can come and submerge the building within that, and also creating kind of an interesting kind of buffer zone on the very harsh sun, 40-degree, 50-degree temperature when Shantiniketan summer goes up, and created a shaded courtyard inside various classrooms and various activities of there. So these are the kind of inside spaces, which kind of very interesting spaces, which talks about the kind of buffer space, the layers outside, which protect the sun, and inside is a kind of a sky relationship with the sky. And the organic planning also allows people to kind of associative perceptions, which kind of trees and other things, which kind of many functions of the schools, which kind of connect to all those things, and also allows ventilations and also take care of the sun glares. And if you see that, this is a kind of a pathway which connect to the hostel block and also connect to the area of lecture halls, and right hand side will be a one-story building of canteen, and it's a larger height. So it is a kind of a very, very interesting, cozy space how Vishwabharati has been emerged as part of the university. We try to kind of an ideate from that, and we try to involve those local crafts and tribal people to engage on that particular activity. So they should be part of that whole ecosystem of creating those infrastructure. And this is the kind of a reception. So we got a crazy floor, and then also the AC grill also made with the the brick lattice, which is always available. So we try to figure it out how this building as also a kind of a part of the whole idea of crafting. And this is the part of the life. So whenever I go to the site, I take pictures. This is almost 10 years. We just completed, and we are getting some pictures. So while we are going to the nearby in the tribal village, we have seen this is the kind of an images we really kind of inspire us. And it also kind of an interesting to how in this kind of places how interactions can be possibly from outside to inside. The complex has become a kind of a binary of two elements from outside to inside and connect to the both the part. And this is the kind of this is the right hand side where the auditorium is and rest of the building, and it's a kind of landscape emerge as part of the building and actually grow over top. So it's a small video. So it talks about inside and interesting. This is a library space. That's a roofscape. And eventually our team has done very interesting illustrations of that whole roofscapes of the life, which almost took 10 years to make these things. So hostel block is also kind of adjacencies of this academic block which connect to the main entrance, and we just had painted plasters over here. The budget is a very, very constraint on that kind of scenarios. It's kind of unfold layers on every corners, and also created kind of single loaded corridors which actually protect the area of the corridors as a harsh southwest sun. That's a courtyard, first courtyard, connected to the second courtyard, entrance, the various level off from the courtyard, and typically the one of the facades of the hostel block, and which we are making another hostel block over there. So Artshila also and kind of very, very interesting interventions as Shantiniketan. So it is a cultural hub, and this is one of the very interesting projects for us, because it was a 3-bedroom villa which unknowingly I have done on my 5th year to my friend's father to villa, and he sold it to someone else. And one of my client has bought that land and actually try to break that building and make a cultural hub. But the story revealed completely different. when we changed the scale of a villa to one of the most important cultural hub today in Shantiniketan. So villa become library and residencies. Artshila is a very interesting propositions. When I got a call from Sanjeev Kumar that they bought a house in Shantiniketan and wanted to convert to a cultural hub, and then he revealed, 22 years back, I only designed that house. This is today. So the idea is to retrofit the idea of spaces of galleries, cultural centers, canteen, and all those spaces within that smaller building of 3 BHK villa. Three agenda we worked on. One, that there will be several trees in this kind of villa, so we want to keep each and every one. We don't want to break the building. And third, we try to create the structure as a kind of backbone, then kind of extensions, creating canopies and change the functions of the gallery and cultural hub. So we take the cues from the slopes and bringing down almost in stitching and steel roofing systems on the frontal canopy, and that become a kind of arena of multiple cultural hub. Then landscape has become an interesting sitting, and inside all bedrooms become a gallery. So we open up some walls and stitch to a steel structure, and that become a contiguous process of gallery and exhibition spaces. Today we feel proud because the idea of flexibility, the idea of adaptability is the most key part of this particular project, and we try to keep this building to breathe with natural trees and the essence of the multiple artists and talents who can use this building in various ways. So as Giovanni Pallasma says, the profound design process eventually makes the patron and architect and every occasional visitors in the building a slightly better human beings. So the last phase of my presentations is about my life and how I came from. And that's the most important part, and the most kind of part of my heart is attached to it. So peri-urban acupunctures, which we are doing for last 15 years. So this is Bansberia, which I came from and born and brought up over here. And in a crisis which I'm going through over like social, cultural, economic and political environment is a very important. And believe me, the 90% of the populations in our country of 1.4 billion doesn't really bother about what architecture, what expositions, what architects really making for their life. And that's in fact. And the idea of question that I ever asked first time, that why we are actually in the professions and are we adding any values for their life? And that is a fundamental question that we always thinking. And that is in practicing in India. And we must understand that in that fundamental idea of that process of practicing in India, you really need to touch upon so many million people. Otherwise, there is no value of our professions. And this is in Adisaptagram and Bansberia, and now it's become a kind of kind of increasing diameters in terms of influence that our projects has been created. So this is where I came from. It's a very interesting temple. Processions and the celebrations I've been part of my childhood life. Football is something that really kind of inspired me. I run in football academy. And also the temples, the crafts also I've been part of the whole process. And this is what Football Connections as really kind of a social experience, which actually generates the idea of creating so many infrastructures across the country, even started with the Bansberia and Adisaptagram. And that started with the pavilion that we have designed in 2012, which is the bamboo pavilion, which is the kind which impacted goes to MoMA and created so many influences and media and other things and connect to the studio with a multi-layers of connections, and which we took the opportunity to create one after one, and a social projects and a community projects and a pro bono projects and a projects from today, the government and also the panchayats, and we keep doing those things. And it's now 10, it's become now 16, and we keep doing, and the sphere is kind of an exploring and kind of neighborhood. So this is the walking across shares neighborhoods. So we are right now doing Ghat, which is one of the most critical projects that we have been witnessing in the dynamic river Ganges, how you design crematoriums and the Ghat, where every day 30,000 people visits. And within that parameters, where the fund is a problem, the quality issue is a problem, but you still doing to make sure that the influence of the million people you can manage through your architecture. And this is the multiple ghats that we are really making it. And this is also recently completed. We post on Instagram, but we could not have a photograph done. This is a community shop, small shops, and other side will be a gallery for the football club. And we are working on a threshold and a shared spaces, navigating and negotiating with private and the states, and calibrating how architecture can be still livable and influencing so many people. The loft is also in a kind of a regeneration of kind of collateral of few terraces of my one of the houses. So in the COVID time, the 3 terraces has been thought they'll be an idle. So the 3 terraces has been combined in one singular space, and we join 3 terraces in one space. This is kind of private space, and then we just teach the 3 terraces with steel, and then become one living space and the space of there. And some of the furniture that we have designed also is part of our copyright that we are right now doing, experimenting. So this is the kind of wood and steel framework that worked on that. So outside the building remain as it is, but we shift the building inside and make sure even the kind of door has become and kind of blue and kind of gradient with the red on this framework. So that's a kind of spaces on the terrace which become a kind of private spaces, connections with the steels and woods, typical doors which have clear details. Yeah, some of the pictures on that, details of that we try to explore that. So coming back to the idea of notions, because when we have developed this area for last few years, we found out this is a kind of celebration that the neighborhoods are actually looking forward. And this is a kind of shot that we have thought that junction is a very important part, and as a part of that community, we need to really create a kind of an Thakur Dalan, we call a place of worship. And we thought that they really need a very smaller space, and when we actually extracted the mass as the memory of divinity, and which we require, because also in a kind of functional requirement, because in cultural ecosystems they need and functions where a lot of people will gather, and we need to open the gates. So what we have actually done, this is an very, very low budget within local craftsmen. We try to do that and make sure that all the precast we make it, and slabs has to make on fit. So this is the 3D, and then we actually retrofit all the precast lattice work on the framework, and then it's become this. So this is the kind of placement which really in a kind of tiny space of there, and this is a kind of place that people gather over there throughout their life, and this become a kind of almost in spiritual spaces where the framework is kind of open up, and it can actually accept so many people. So even the placemaking is such that this spirituality actually invited people to come to bring the water on top of the gates, and somebody in the summertime sleeping on the bench. So that is kind of ownership, that when you gift it to the places, and that become part of their life. So while the idol goes there and it's a completely unmodern structure and exposed concrete, and they celebrate with the people, with the idols over there. So also workshop is also kind of an extensions of our workshops, because most of the cases when we design within 1:1 scale and try to experiment a lot of stuff. And this workshop is very, very important, and we started with our own team for a long time back, and eventually it demands a lot of local craftsmen to encourage in part of the ecosystems, and also it helps us to create a kind of a growth in terms of places. And that workshops is kind of changes to this form where we designed and structural engineeringly 6 portals. The 6 portals also kind of ventilators, and 6 portals are made with the steel, which has a kind of ventilations and a kind of louvers on the other side, and actually hold the 10,000 square feet of area. So this is how the structure and overall ventilation works. So upper level is a glass, so it's kind of derivative what IIT Pavilion we have done, and inside level is in kind of pivoted and sometimes open within mesh, which is allow ventilations and the laborer to come out on that spaces and kind of relax or lunch or interact with the villagers. So that's why we have done it. Yeah, that's kind of setting. So that's a portal which connects the structure of the whole pavilion for the workshops. The Food Rescue Pavilion also kind of an initiations when the cyclone Amphan and Dias has happened in 20 and 21, and we are struggling in Sundarban how to create multiple rescue centers, and it is really kind of devastating situations while this water goes in everywhere, and this destroy the thousand of square kilometers. And you have to understand that this is something that's very, very important for us to rescue, and they get only 3 hours, 4 hours rescue time, because the government boat will come and launch, they will rescue. So we try to create something very, very interestingly in terms of the idea of the time frame and to create a rescue. So we approached the government, and government declined. They want to make something in concrete, which is Sundarban. Bringing in concrete and island is impossible. So we proposed in bamboo, and actually they could not give us that kind of opportunity. So we made it on mock-up in our workshops and factory, and we said that we can do it in our set and bring the government official to see how it works. So it is made it completely bamboo, with 5.5 lakhs rupees, and a canopy and a 3-story building with completely bamboo, no steel, nothing. And to test the whole 100 people in our studio actually jumped on it and had a picnic over there to make sure that it is really working. And eventually the last 4 years we are working on this, and so many activities has happened, and now government is actually allowing us to make multiple this kind of pavilion, of large pavilion, to make it permanent, and below that could be an use for the public community. So Gallery House, the second last project, is also kind of a tribute to a terracotta, which is a very interesting temple that I've been witnessing in my childhood. And while somebody is actually giving us, kind of design a garage to me. So the trade-off is I can design a garage, but the garage has to be given to a people for the community across the places. And we celebrate the terracotta, we celebrate the brick and the local crafts with this, and give the whole space of the garage and roof to the public, and a private space on the separate space. And this is what a garage is, and a staff quarters behind. And it's a kind of tribute to the people of culture, a tribute to the people over there where people has worked on it, and the ground floor, while become a garage, is used in multiple facades. So this is you can climb up, and you can go up and go straight to the roof. You can see the folded on the roof, because that's also weighty. And that is also kind of in steps which you see. This is a kind of an OAT that we have created on the roof. So this is how the massing has developed. And while we do the projects, we always keep the camera on. And in this camera, So what we actually witnessed that even the procession is going, how we met the steps, the people start taking ownership of the steps. And that's the beauty of architecture. Even it's not completed, the people start taking on it. And that's a kind of details, all the bricks and ceramics and everything crafted on site. So steel as part of the systems that's going up to the roof, inside. The private space where occasionally Saturday, Sunday they used dancing floors, the garage which goes to a free book giving ceremony for the community, blood donation camp, still garage is there, card is there, and also a kind of very, very interesting the health checkup center, the ceramic artist Partho Dashgupta, we have collaborated with that. And and also this is all the ceramics and bricks, everything is becoming a lab of a site. Each and everything has been done over here on site, and all those things has been made over there, and we crafted each things over there. And this is part of the SEPT exhibitions, which we have also bring it 1:1 scale, is a traveling exhibitions. And coming back to my last projects, and time is up. So the Waterfront Pavilion also kind of very, very interesting. And then 5 lakhs rupees we have got from government, and the rest 13 lakhs we have got from multiple places, stakeholders, villagers to contribute that. And while we have designed these things, we need to understand how this building really works for the people and part of the villagers. And this is it places exactly, and the twist has been made to sure that an upper level gallery can see the whole football ground. And overall, while we have 2 minutes, so while we are going for this process, that while time is going increasingly, and while our involvement is less, but the community start taking ownership of that whole spaces, and eventually what happened is this takes the completely changed the village, and across the country, the foundations of Jindal, foundation of Adani has taken this model, and we are creating almost a very, very large scale, smaller infrastructure across the country. So it's kind of living room for them. And while there'll be a football match, the whole space become crowded, and it's yoga for them. And it's a very interesting idea of the kind of layering how the people do that. And it's a simple celebrations while it's opened and in multifold, how the spaces become a part of the whole sense. And not only that, if you see that this is a campaign of the political leaders which they used as a picture of our club as winning the votes, and they win. And the interesting part is the architecture becomes so powerful, and the villagers start influencing on that. They started the kind of an idea of epitome. And I always end with this, because we do a lot of villas. One toilet goes 60 lakhs, 1 crores. And I always believe that probably on one infrastructure in India, which we really need, and rather than a really large infrastructure, takes almost one toilet become 3 times for one single infrastructure. And we must, influence our clients. And this has become an architectural monograph by Architectural Review by London. So Samir Kulabur has actually composed that. And the man on Morald editor who has written Architectural Review. So, we always build the small building is a much more powerful in India, which is required. And this is the place, making of place, the book by Sept. And I end with the slides where we always believe that architecture becomes meaningful when it expands its sphere of influence beyond its physical entity and transforms not only the surroundings but also the lives of users, become emblems of generosity and collective assets. And that's most important, because how you will be influencing so many millions of people in a country like India, where the small infrastructure is much required. Thank you so much.